I've done is try to be nice to you and you still don't like me. How can you not like me?
Life could be a dream, life could be a dream. Life could be a dream, if I could take you up to paradise, and you would tell me.
For a while, I've been looking at some indie NES games as of late. Seeing what people are able to do with nearly 4-decade-old hardware is really cool. I also like games that manage to capture the NES look, feel, and taste while using something like GameMaker or Flash. So today, I wanted to talk about some of my personal favorites from this ever-growing collection. But first, I think it's time we trade up. Now, this isn't something I'm gonna do normally, but I think it's a nice change of pace from the blue gradient. So let's start with our first game. Now before we talk about our first game, I want to bring up something I think is pretty cool. From 1992 to 2010, Hummer Team is a company known for their weird bootlegs such as Somari, Mario World, and Earthworm Jim. Now, I'm not trying to pull a clickbait and call all of these fan games here bootlegs, but the way Hummer Team does their bootlegs is really cool. Hummer Team bootlegs are special due to the fact that they're remakes of existing games from more advanced systems. Unlike most bootlegs where they switch out sprites and such, Hummer Team programs a new engine for their games. Now, given that their games are bootlegs, they're not the most polished games. Give Somari / Sonic 5 / The Hummer for example. The blueprints to Sonic on NES is there, but given how it's a bootlegging studio in 1992, it's not going to be the most polished game. But the building blocks are there, with modders using said blocks to make this a way more tolerable game. Jabu and Terwolf helped turn Somari into a decent game that you can actually feel like completing with Sonic NES Improvement Hack Volume 2. With new music, sprites, and improved gameplay, making this a much more enjoyable experience. I can't really criticize this game a whole lot because the faults this hack has is more of the result of the game they're modding just not being a good game to begin with. But I feel like over time, the engine to this game will probably be much more polished later down the line. The only thing I can say is keep on trucking. Also, a friend of mine told me that Hummer's Earthworm Jim NES port is better than the official GBA port. So take that for what it's worth. Tapeworm Disco Puzzle is a really fun puzzle game by Lowtech. The plot of this game is to help make a great rager for some fleas by collecting tapes, music notes, and blood for the bastards. The main goal of the game is to collect everything, all while bound to 2 holes of a cassette, and using the amount of length your worm has to get said collectibles. To get more length, each tape you collect adds 4 more length to your worm. That sounds awful. In some levels, you'll have to guide a flea to the door so it can sing. The show must go on. And the boss battles will have you traverse the level Nokia Snake style, as you aren't bound to the cassette in these. These levels took me a while because of how fast the worm goes, but I got done with those eventually. The game itself is really fun and mildly addicting, like nicotine, and as a bonus, you get access to a Steam key, a Dreamcast port of the game, and the soundtrack. So for $10 on itch.io, I think it's worth the price. Like nicotine. Nessy the NES Robot is a side-scrolling platformer developed by Daniel T. Gaming Studio, DTG Games. Now, I used to watch Daniel's channel a lot when I was a tiny baby, and after a few years, I decided to check out his channel again, and I really like some of his newer videos. His physical media video is really well made, and I really like it a lot. But, you came for a review, and a review I shall give. The game starts out with a story, so I think it's time for Fart's Story Corner. Now here's something we hope you really like. One day in the peaceful land of Pixel Park, an invasion of slime creatures and robotic monsters began destroying everything in their path. Aww. Holy shitballs! Pioka notices something. A green UFO mothership unleashing these foul creatures onto the land. Nessy, the hero of this tale, gets on his 2 feet and monologues like there's no tomorrow.
This place is my home, and it hurt me to see it all fall apart on me.
So our hero sets off into the rest of this review. Okay, now that that's over, this game is really fun. The level design here reminds me a lot of the AVGN games. Another thing I like about this game are the unique type of level themes they do, such as a cafe, a toyland, and Mars for example. I really like the sprite work in this game, with the character sprites in particular probably being the best in this game. I also like this one Easter egg to a trip to the moon. There are some problems I have with the game, like the bosses for example feeling really button mashy. Like this boss in particular is probably the best example of this. And jumping also feels a bit janky too, but I think that boils down to what controller you use, because jumping, to me at least, differs when using my laptop's keyboard compared to my 8-bit Do controller. And the game is pretty short. And besides the base game, you get a PC port, manual, and a soundtrack as well. Overall, it's a fun platformer that I think is worth getting, but depending on how you feel about shorter games, it's entirely up to you. And if you're watching Daniel Thin T Gaming Thin, hope my $9.99 is treating you well. That sounded mean, I'm sorry.
Hello everyone, Fart Eating Fart 6 here, and today we're gonna talk about a game that I loathe.
Entirely.
This game is worse than the entirety of modern Family Guy. Not once does the DVD logo hit the
Oh no, it hits a corner. It hit the corner. We're all good. And we're all good. Super SpongeBob 2 is a very difficult game, at least to me, but regardless, I think this game has a lot of personality behind it. I could tell that this was made by a true blue-collared SpongeBob fan, like one of the levels being Frankendoodle and one of the bosses being Timeshare.
Don't do it, Sandy!
This game also takes influence from Hummer Team games. Well, we went full circle. With the title and music, for example, being based on these types of games. The game itself is largely based on The Lost Spatula, with the gameplay and sprites being obviously based on The Lost Spatula and other Hummer Team games. The game's story is also based on The Lost Spatula. The plot of the game is that the Flying Dutchman is gathering up all the golden spatulas, so SpongeBob and eventually Patrick have to go stop him. Now, I'm not a fan of The Lost Spatula, it's just a poorly designed game overall, and I'm happy to say that this game is a big improvement over that. The music in this, regardless of its Hummer influence, is based on a lot of the tracks from the show and older SpongeBob games such as Super Sponge. The songs here are also done in Famitracker, so all these games are NES accurate. Personally, I think it would have been better if it was a healthy mix of original songs and songs from the show, like Cosmic Shake for example, but I'm fine with the music choices they picked out here. Regardless of the challenge, I think it's safe to say that this is a good game, so check it out, and plus, it's Super Mario Crossover was probably the easiest way for me to play Mario as a little baby boy. Created by Exploding Rabbit, this game lets you play as different characters in the original Super Mario Bros., such as Mega Man, Mr. Castlevania, Samus, Link, Blaster Master Thing, and more. Before you start the game, you have the option of playing the original Super Mario Bros., Lost Levels, and Special. You also get a lot of quality of life perks, such as the modern damage system in later Mario games, for example. From what you saw so far, you can also have the game be in different styles too, like Mario 3 and Mario Land 2 for example. The gameplay here feels just like the original Super Mario Bros., and the other characters feel like their respective games as well, despite it all running on Flash. And you know how Flash Mario games get. Unfortunately, we couldn't have such fine dining anymore, as Chrome soon killed off the Flash player. This means you can't run the game anymore without having to use a third-party Flash player. I used the Newgrounds player, because I ain't downloading 48 fucking terabytes into my dingy laptop. And if you're wondering about a port of the game, from what I've been able to gather, they've been working on a Unity port of the game, but it hasn't been released in a finished state yet. This game is probably one of my favorite Flash games of all time, mostly due to me spending a sizable chunk of my life playing on this, so it'll always have a soft place in my clogged arteries. Well, the video is over. I hope you guys enjoyed this, because I sure did. Make sure to subscribe to Invasive newsletters, because I always have deals that you missed out on weeks ago. Adios, goodbye, and Godspeed.